It happened during the last quarter of 2023, a time when the economy was spiraling, corporations were downsizing, and millions were barely holding on. But that's not what makes this story unusual. What makes it unforgettable is what happened inside the offices of Wilshire and Wakefield Solutions, a mid-sized tech consultancy in Chicago, on a gray Wednesday afternoon. A young black programmer, quiet, brilliant, and determined, was fired without warning, without cause, and most disturbingly, without decency. And the man who fired him? His smug, short-tempered boss, the regional director named Hank Lorman, a man with a fake smile, graying temples, and a voice that always sounded like it was one insult away from disaster. The employee's name was Malik, a soft-spoken man in his early 30s with a towering intellect hidden behind calm brown eyes. He wore crisp button-downs, read data science journals on his lunch breaks, and kept to himself. To most, he seemed like the kind of guy who just wanted to code in peace. But behind his calmness was a storm quietly brewing for years, and it all began the moment Hank set his sights on him. Malik had been outperforming every benchmark in the department. While others were barely closing mid-level contracts, Malik had led the restructuring of a failing logistics app that brought in a new $3 million account. He wasn't just surviving, he was innovating. But none of that mattered. Not when Hank, who always seemed just a little too eager to humiliate certain employees, noticed the attention Malik was getting from upper management. At first, it was subtle. Assignments that were beneath his skill level, meetings rescheduled without notice, credit for his work quietly redirected to team efforts. Hank led himself. Then came the snide comments. "You people really do know tech, huh? Let's try to keep the dress code professional, okay? You're awfully articulate." Each time, Malik stared blankly, never giving the man the satisfaction of outrage. But inside, he was taking notes. The breaking point came after a company retreat in late November. Malik had just presented a potential AI integration that could save the company thousands in client costs. The room applauded. Even the usually silent CEO had nodded in approval. But Hank didn't smile. In fact, he barely clapped. That Monday, Malik was called into Hank's office. No warning, no HR present. "Let me be blunt," Hank said, leaning back in his chair, fingers laced like a villain in a B-movie. "You're just not a culture fit here. We've decided to let you go. Today." Malik sat motionless. No reason, no complaints, no documentation, nothing. Just a fabricated excuse. His badge was deactivated within the hour. His desk cleared by a junior associate who didn't even meet his eyes. As he exited the building, the receptionist gave him a confused glance, as if to say, "What just happened?" Malik didn't answer. He simply walked to his car, locked the door, and exhaled deeply. That was the last time Wilshire and Wakefield saw him, but it was far from the end of his story. What no one at that company knew, what Hank couldn't possibly imagine, was that Malik had been working on something in secret. For the past 2 years, he'd been building a startup with 2 friends from MIT, a data optimization platform built for supply chains in underdeveloped regions, powered by machine learning. It was lean, efficient, and brilliantly ahead of its time. All he needed was time to focus. And now, thanks to Hank, he had exactly that. By spring of 2024, Malik's startup, Trinova Logistics, had raised $20 million in Series A funding. 2 major clients signed up within a month. And within 6 months, Trinova wasn't just growing, it was exploding. Former colleagues who'd dismissed Malik as quiet or strange were now messaging him on LinkedIn, hoping to reconnect. Local tech magazines ran articles with titles like "The Soft-Spoken Engineer Who Outsmarted the Industry." And then, one article went viral. "Fired on Friday, funded by Monday, the Malik story." Suddenly, Malik's name was everywhere, and with that spotlight came karma. Because while Trinova was climbing, Wilshire and Wakefield was falling apart. The AI integrations Malik had proposed, never implemented. The clients he managed, slipped away. Hank had been promoted just weeks after Malik's firing, but his success was hollow and temporary. Without Malik's insights, Hank fumbled pitch after pitch. Internal surveys showed morale was at a decade low. Anonymous Glassdoor reviews painted him as toxic, incompetent, and alarmingly biased. A quiet HR investigation was launched, but it was too late. Contracts dried up. Revenue dropped 40%. Layoffs began. Then came the day. It was a rainy Thursday in early March. Malik had just stepped into his new downtown office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, the quiet hum of productivity all around, when his assistant knocked gently on the glass. "There's a Hank Lorman here," she said, almost whispering. "He says he's here about the job opening for VP of Operations." Malik didn't move at first, just stared at her, blinking slowly. Did he know this was Trinova? She nodded. He did. I asked twice. He told her to send him in. What walked into that office wasn't the same smug man who fired him months ago. Hank looked smaller now. The confident walk replaced by an uneasy shuffle. His once slicked hair was grayer, unkempt. His suit was worn at the edges, and the moment he stepped inside, their eyes met. One man confused by how things had flipped so violently, the other quietly savoring the moment. "I didn't know it was your company," Hank said, smiling nervously. "Have a seat," Malik replied coldly. Hank sat. The silence that followed felt like a storm gathering over a still lake. "I'll be honest," Hank said, clearing his throat. "Things haven't been great. After you left, well, the company hit some rough patches. I've been looking for something new, and your platform's gotten a lot of attention. I figured maybe we could put the past behind us." Malik leaned back. "You fired me without cause." That wasn't personal. You have to understand there were pressures, optics, company culture." "Say it," Malik interrupted. His tone was calm, but the room felt tense. "You didn't think someone like me belonged in your office? That I was too black, too smart, too much?" Hank looked away. His mouth twitched. "I didn't mean it like that." "But you did," Malik said flatly. "And now you're here, because you need me. Isn't that ironic?" Hank's eyes glazed slightly, as if realizing the weight of this moment. "I just need a chance, Malik." There was a long pause. "You'll hear from us," Malik said finally. "We'll consider your application." Hank stood up slowly, nodded, and left. But the moment the door closed behind him, Malik's assistant stepped in again, this time holding a manila folder. "You're going to want to see this," she said. Inside were documents from the ongoing HR investigations into Hank's time at Wilshire and Wakefield. Anonymous emails, whistleblower reports, even an old forwarded message that showed Hank had called Malik a diversity hire with attitude in a company chat. Malik closed the folder without a word, but his eyes were no longer calm. He picked up his phone and made a single call. "Get legal on the line," he said. "We might need to make this public. And dig deeper. Something's off. I want to know everything." Because what started as a simple case of poetic justice was now unraveling into something much darker. And Malik wasn't just going to sit back and enjoy karma. He was going to make sure it came with consequences. Malik didn't sleep that night. He sat in the quiet of his condo, the skyline of downtown Chicago blinking silently through his floor-to-ceiling windows. The city looked peaceful, but his mind wasn't. The folder still sat on the marble counter, untouched since he brought it home. He didn't need to reopen it. He'd memorized the contents. The reports weren't just damning, they were revealing. Hank's racism hadn't just been subtle remarks or petty sabotage. It had cost people jobs. It had buried careers. Women, black employees, Asian staffers, even a disabled intern. He had destroyed people's livelihoods for sport, and management had looked the other way every time. Wilshire and Wakefield had buried it under HR memos and training seminars, hoping it would fade. But Malik had a platform now, and he was done being quiet. The next morning, he didn't even go to his office. Instead, he met with a lawyer in a quiet glass building 2 blocks from Trinova's headquarters. The attorney, Leah Mendoza, was sharp, aggressive, and already familiar with Hank's name. She had once represented another of Hank's former employees in a wrongful termination suit, one that was settled quietly out of court. "You want to go public?" Leah asked, flipping through the new folder. "Because this is a bombshell, Malik. If we leak this, it won't just take down Hank. It could bury Wilshire and Wakefield, too." "That's the point," Malik said. "They let it happen. They protected him, and then they let him throw me out like I didn't matter." Leah tapped her pen against the desk. "You know, once this drops, people are going to come out of the woodwork. Media, lawyers, PR firms. You ready for that?" Malik leaned forward, voice steady. "I've been ready since the day he fired me." She nodded once. "Then let's make this storm." By the end of the week, a carefully constructed exposé had been sent to 3 major outlets. Not gossip blogs, real, hard-hitting investigative journalists. Malik provided documents, emails, and most importantly, contact info for 5 other former employees who agreed to speak anonymously. One of them, a woman named Rachel, cried during her Zoom interview, recalling how Hank mocked her accent in a meeting and told her she was lucky we're inclusive. The article dropped on a Monday morning. Inside the racism of corporate America, a Wilshire and Wakefield whistleblower speaks. By noon, it had 2.3 million views. By the next day, Malik's name was trending again. Only this time, the story was bigger than a fired genius building a startup. This was about corporate rot. This was about justice. The article quoted Malik directly, detailing the moment he was fired, the silence of HR, the condescension, the dismissals. The piece closed with the revelation that Hank Lorman had recently applied for a job at Malik's new company. The irony lit up social media. By Wednesday, Wilshire and Wakefield released a vague statement condemning discrimination of any kind. But the damage was done. Protests erupted outside their office. Old clients cut ties. 3 board members resigned. And by Friday, a leaked internal memo confirmed it. Hank Lorman had been officially terminated pending an external review. But the story didn't end there. A week after the article went viral, Malik received a call from an unfamiliar number. He let it go to voicemail, but when he played it back, he froze. "Malik, it's Hank. Look, I know how it looks, but this wasn't supposed to happen like this. They threw me under the bus. They used me as a scapegoat. Please call me back. I need to talk." Malik didn't call back. But the next day, a package arrived at Trinova's front desk. No return address. Inside was a single manila envelope with Malik's name handwritten in black marker. He opened it slowly in his office, his assistant watching from the doorway. Inside were 3 pages of typed notes, a confession, a timeline, and a list of names. Hank had documented everything, every order he received from upper management to target specific employees, every suggestion to quietly fire the ones who complained. The list of terminated names matched many of the whistleblower testimonies. There were initials of executives, payments made to former staff to sign NDAs, and a handwritten footnote on the final page. "If I'm going down, I'm not going alone. They built this. I just followed orders." It was cowardly. It was desperate. But it was gold. Malik stared at the pages for a long time, then locked them in his safe. He knew what this meant. It wasn't just Hank. It never had been. Hank was a symptom. The disease was deeper. And now he had evidence. Enough to drag the whole operation into the light. Enough to start something real. He called Leah. 3 hours later, they were sitting with a federal investigator. The evidence was too detailed, too specific to ignore. The investigator took copies, asked more questions, and promised to open a formal inquiry into Wilshire and Wakefield's hiring and firing practices over the past decade. Malik didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply nodded. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reckoning. 2 months passed. During that time, Trinova tripled its client base. They moved into a bigger building. Malik hired a new director of operations, Rachel, the woman who had once cried during her interview. She walked into her first day smiling with purpose, holding a fresh latte and a manila folder of her own. A full circle moment. But on a rainy Tuesday morning, Malik's receptionist entered his office with a strange look. "There's someone in the lobby again," she said. "He says he's homeless, but he asked for you by name." Malik raised an eyebrow. "Describe him." "White, late 50s, wearing a torn gray coat. Looks like he hasn't slept in days." He stood slowly. When Malik stepped into the lobby, his chest tightened. It was Hank. His face was gaunt, lips cracked, one eye slightly bruised. His hair looked unwashed, his hands trembling as he clutched a soaked paper bag. He didn't speak at first, just stared at Malik, shame thick on his skin like a second layer. "I lost everything," he finally muttered. "My house. My wife left. I'm sleeping in a shelter near Jefferson Park." Malik said nothing. "I don't know what else to do," Hank whispered. "No one will hire me. My name's Poison. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Malik's voice was ice. "You meant everything you did to me, and to them." "I was wrong," Hank said, falling to his knees right there on the polished floor. "I was wrong. I see that now. But you could help me. Just something small. Data entry, reception, anything." People were watching from the hall, but Malik didn't look at them. His eyes never left the man kneeling before him. "Do you know what it feels like," Malik said slowly, "to walk into a room knowing someone already decided your worth based on your skin? To be stripped of your dignity by someone who smiled while doing it?" Hank said nothing. "You didn't just fire me," Malik continued. "You erased me, and now you want me to hand you a life raft?" Hank trembled. Malik leaned closer. "Stand up." Hank did, unsteady. Malik reached into his wallet and pulled out a card, not for Trinova, for a local rehabilitation center that partnered with nonprofits for job placement. "This is the best I can do," he said. "Not out of mercy, but because someone once gave me a shot when I didn't deserve one either. Don't show your face here again." Hank took the card with shaking fingers. Then he left. That night, Malik sat on his rooftop balcony, the skyline glowing beyond. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't celebrating. There was no champagne, no applause, no speeches. Just peace, because justice doesn't always come with fanfare. Sometimes it comes quietly, like the sound of a man's pride shattering on a lobby floor. And Malik had built something that couldn't be taken away now. Not by racism, not by arrogance, not by the past. He didn't just rise from the ashes, he owned the sky now.